Starting a realistic Arne Slot Liverpool career mode in FC25 offers two options. You can either begin at the start of the season or use the live points feature, where Liverpool are currently 12 points clear at the top of the table and on their way to securing their 20th Premier League title. However, the focus of this video is on the next phase of Arne Slot's era at Anfield. The emphasis will be on adapting the team to Slot's tactical vision, as several key players are expected to leave the club as the squad transitions into its new phase. In their place, a few key signings will be made to fit Slot's style of play, ensuring Liverpool remains competitive in both domestic and European competitions. With improvements across key positions and additions of young dynamic talents, the squad will gradually reflect Slot's high energy attacking football. Here's how you can start a realistic Liverpool career mode in FC25. So you are going to be trying to replicate realistic parameters for an Arne Slot Liverpool career mode. Now, of course, that does stem to the on-field play, and I have gone ahead and already made both the 4-2-3-1 along with the updated video, as well as the 4-2-4 false 9 systems in FC25. So I'd highly recommend you going to check out those videos so you can implement the most realistic versions of Arne Slot's tactics into your game. Now, a little disclaimer should be made for these tactics that with certain players leaving and other players coming through the doors, of course the system will be tweaked and changed and adjusted to fit the personnel in the squad. Slot has shown that he is very adaptable with how he wants his side playing. So I would advise that you adjust the player roles for the new players that do come in accordingly. I am going to run through the first team squad and discuss the futures of certain individuals, whether they will be staying or potentially leaving. Now, of course, I am not a Liverpool fan, and if you are a Liverpool fan, I welcome your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. So we'll start off with the goalkeepers, and at the moment, there's Alisson, Kelleher, Jaros, Mamardashvili, who will be in the squad from next season, as well as Davies. Now, of course, a first team squad does not need 5 goalkeepers, so you could probably say selling 2 of them is the best way going forward. Now, I do think that Alisson will be at Liverpool next season. I don't think he's going anywhere. But the likes of Queeve and Kelleher could be out the door. There haven't been surefire links with him going to Newcastle or Bournemouth, but those could be 2 fantastic destinations for him to join and get first team minutes, something that he has been wanting for the last 2 years or so. And I do think that selling Kelleher and of course replacing him with a fantastic second choice goalkeeper like Mamardashvili, who is obviously the future goalkeeper for Liverpool, is a great bit of business that Liverpool executed last summer. Now, as for Jaros and Davies, look, it's a coin toss. You can flip and decide from there on out. I think probably Jaros is the best option, but in terms of creating those realistic parameters, let's not forget, because Liverpool are an English side, you do need a certain amount of English players in the team to meet that quota, and Jaros is not English and Davies is. Factor that in as well when shaping up your squad. Now, moving on to the defense, and there are 5 viable left back options that Arne Slot should consider going forward. Now, of course, there's Andy Robertson, Tsimikas, Owen Beck, who was out on loan at Blackburn. I'm a big fan of his. I really do like him, and I do think that he might have a role in this Liverpool team going forward. Then there's also Norris and Chambers. Now, in terms of these 2 young lads, I would probably say either loan them out or get rid of them. As for Owen Beck, we will discuss, but Tsimikas has been linked with several moves away from Liverpool, and that would make a lot of sense, especially if you are trying to bring in a certain Hungarian left back from the coast. Anyways, point is though, Tsimikas could be gone. That would leave you with Andy Robertson, Owen Beck, and maybe one of Norris or Chambers. I would keep Beck. I'm a big fan of Beck. I think he's got all the talent in the world to be a bombing on, rapid attacking fullback, whipping in crosses, supplying the attackers with those options in the box, but also he's quite good defensively. He knows how to track back. He knows how to keep that left-hand side locked down. So maybe as a third choice left back, potentially for the future, maybe loan him out another season. That could be an option. He could be the Andy Robertson replacement effectively, because like I say, Robertson is what, 31, 32? He's not going to be the starting fullback on the left side forever. Owen Beck could definitely be his replacement along with a few other players, which we will discuss transfers later on in the video. But I do see Tsimikas leaving. I see Robertson staying. You also don't want to get rid of too many players too quickly, because then you lose the ethos of the team, the good work that both Slot and Klopp have created over the last 10 or so years. I mean, Slot in the last year, but Klopp the previous 9. And Andy Robertson does embody a lot of that culture, so you don't really want to lose that, along with potentially Trent and Van Dijk and Salah and Diaz and so on and so on and so on, which we will talk about. Anyways, moving on to the centre-backs. Now, there are a few centre-backs currently on the books. We've got Van Dijk, the captain. There were reports a few days ago that Van Dijk is talking to, is it Luis Campos from PSG, the PSG director, whoever it is, and people were saying, oh, he's going to PSG, and then there was that fake report, I would assume, where PSG have offered Van Dijk 100 million over the next 3 seasons, and Liverpool can't match that. Now, I see Van Dijk staying. If Van Dijk does not stay, I will be absolutely shocked, as well as, it's just my opinion, but I think Liverpool can potentially lose a Trent Alexander-Arnold and a Mohamed Salah, and they could be okay. But if they had to lose Van Dijk and keep the other 2, I think that is more catastrophic in terms of their backline and how that just falls apart, because you can't really replace a player like Van Dijk. It's impossible. Honestly, in my most humble opinion, from a realistic aspect, Van Dijk staying is probably bang on, and at the end of the season we will get that notification saying Van Dijk has signed a 2-year deal, staying and extending his time at Anfield. Probably, most likely. But a player who will not be staying at Anfield is Joey Gomez, a player who has been rotated as a left back, as a right back, as a centre back through the last decade or so that he's been at Liverpool. I do see him leaving. There were links with him going to potentially Newcastle in the last summer, and maybe that move materializes now, or it doesn't have to be Newcastle, but I do see him leaving in search of first team minutes. That is a big thing with a lot of these players that will be leaving. Konate, I think, is going to be staying for the foreseeable future. Nat Phillips is not good enough, along with Reece Williams. Both of these players, I think, just get rid of them, whether it's releasing them on a free contract or potentially just trying to get in £1 million or so, sell them and reinvest that. Of course, Jarell Quansah is the backup to Konate, can also fill in as a right back, but I would probably say bringing in another centre back, possibly two, could be the direction that Liverpool go in the upcoming summer window. Onto the right backs, and there are three currently on Liverpool's books: Trent Alexander-Arnold, Conor Bradley, and Stevenson. Now, of course, Liverpool are well known, just like with Manchester United, they are quite happy to integrate young talent. That is exactly how Trent Alexander-Arnold got his opportunity under Jurgen Klopp, integrating the young talent, giving them the opportunity to flourish. Now, in my humble opinion, this man, Trent Alexander-Arnold, will be leaving Liverpool, going to Real Madrid. It is almost bang on the money that he will be going. Now, if he stays, well done to Liverpool. They've persuaded their homegrown talent to stay even longer. And of course, he is in the prime of his career right now. He's 26, turning 27. And this is when he is going to be at the peak of his powers. So if you can get him to stay, fan-damn-tastic. But I just see him joining Real Madrid in Spain and Jude Bellingham and just living the best life in the warmer weathers. As for Conor Bradley, I do see him being the long-term right back, especially replacing Trent. And of course, this man right here, Luca Stevenson. Is his name Luca? It is Luca Stevenson. He could definitely be an adequate backup, maybe develop a bit more, and maybe he could be the next best thing. Who knows? But I do suspect that Arne Slot and the Liverpool board will be looking to recruit in this position, specifically if Trent does exit the club. Now, into the base of the midfield, and we do know that Slot likes to deploy a double pivot, whether it's a 4-2-4 or a 4-2-3-1. Gravenberch and McAllister have been that starting duo for majority of the season. But this man right here, Wataru Endo, I do see leaving the club. Arne Slot made it very clear in the summer that he doesn't really fit his style of play, he doesn't fit into his plans, and he has used Endo sparingly throughout the entirety of the season. In fact, he's actually run Gravenberch into the ground in terms of how much he's used and not really rotated the Dutch player because Endo isn't good enough. I mean, we've seen Endo be deployed as a centre back, as a right back, not really in his natural defensive midfield position. So Endo is most likely going to be leaving. Gravenberch, Morton, and Bajcetic. I do think that Bajcetic could have a massive future in this team. Of course, he was loaned out this season to try and get minutes under his belt after that massive injury that he sustained 2 years ago. I don't really know how he's done, but from what I saw 2 years ago, I think he could be very good. I think he could be a fantastic natural replacement, could save Liverpool some money, along with Tyler Morton, who I do think also has the technical capabilities to be deployed in the midfield, maybe alongside a Gravenberch or potentially a McAllister. Now, Morton, I think, is a 50-50. Does he stay? Does he go? Now, there was Bayer Leverkusen that were linked with him in the January window, and Liverpool ended up saying no, they want to keep him. So that does lead me to believe that he is more so staying with Liverpool rather than leaving. But of course, that will be decided at some point in the future. As for Luis Diaz, Cody Gakpo, Scanlon, those are the three left midfielders, the natural positions, right-footed that can cut in and invert and pop off shots or create opportunities. Gakpo is certified, nailed, staying. He's not going anywhere. But Luis Diaz. Now, a lot of Liverpool fans, I think it's a lot of an overreaction after what happened with PSG and after what happened with the cup final and so on. But I do think that Luis Diaz does leave. There have been mumblings over the last 2 or so years that he was angling for a move to Barcelona. It might not be Barcelona per se, but I do think that Luis Diaz does exit Liverpool this season. Look, he's done well in certain moments. I mean, he scored that hat-trick against Bayer Leverkusen in the Champions League. He has done well starting up front as the main striker, out wide on the left as well. Let's not forget that. But I just think that a player like Cody Gakpo more so fits how Slot wants this team playing. And that is a lot of the reasoning behind certain players leaving. Of course, a player like Trent might not be going because that's what Slot wants or doesn't want, or however. I think that's more so on Trent. But a player like Luis Diaz leaving, or potentially a Darwin Nunez leaving, I think that's more so is on the manager not really rating those players to fit his style of play or his system. So I do suspect Diaz does exit, Gakpo does stay, and maybe the addition of a new player walking through the door, possibly, maybe just a current player that's in the squad could just be the backup natural left midfielder. We've already spoken about the double pivot, but of course McAllister is a part of that, and he will continue to be a part of that with the addition of one or two new faces coming in either to back him up or possibly compete with him for that left number 6 position or left number 8 position, however you see it really. Now the current iteration of this Liverpool squad does possess 4 number 10s, Trey Inyoni, Szoboszlai, Jones and Harvey Elliott. Now in terms of Harvey Elliott, I would convert him into that right midfielder, being the natural backup for a Mohamed Salah or possibly Salah's replacements, depending on that situation of course. But for the time being, Curtis Jones and Szoboszlai will be competing for that starting position, with the youngster developing in the background and possibly in 2 or 3 seasons time taking over from potentially Curtis Jones as the backup and then eventually Dominic Szoboszlai as the starter. Now I've just mentioned Harvey Elliott taking up that right midfield backup position, but Lewis Koumas could also be one of those players that can definitely fulfill that backup role or rotational position on the bench. Now let's talk about Mohamed Salah. He has been linked with every other move under the sun, whether he's going to Saudi, whether he's going to PSG on a free, whether he's going to Barcelona. Of course, his contract expires in 3 months time, and it is a 50-50. I think in terms of the big 3 that could be leaving, Trent is leaving, Van Dijk is staying, and Mohamed Salah is a 50-50. He could tip this way, he could tip that way, but I do see him possibly extending at Liverpool, whether it's for another year and then it's just kicking the can down the road. But a lot of the contract debate that's originally started this whole thing is Salah wanted a longer contract. I think Liverpool were offering him a 2-year deal, he wanted a 3-year deal. It's one of those situations. So I do think that Salah does stay. I think he inevitably signs that 2-year contract and he stays, which would be fantastic because again, it's the whole Andy Robertson thing. You don't want to get rid of too much of that natural ethos in the team, in the system that Klopp has developed over the last 9 years, and Arne Slot has come in and also tried to put his own spin on things. And getting rid of majority of those legacy type players, it would not ruin Liverpool. I don't think it would ruin them, but it would definitely change the energy within the squad. And Mohamed Salah, Virgil van Dijk, and even Trent Alexander-Arnold all bring that specific something. I don't know what it is, but they bring that something, and I do think that Mohamed Salah does end up staying. As for Federico Chiesa, now people have been saying he should start up front as the striker for the rest of the season. He's done very well. Why has Slot not used him? And I do think that is down just from an outsider's perspective. Chiesa over the last 3 or 4 years has had major injuries, and I think Slot has eased him into how he wants to play, how he's trying to get his players to play, pressing from the front, being very aggressive, being very fluid, moving from the strike to the wing and back into the striker position. And maybe Chiesa could be the option as the backup left winger, as the striker up front, possibly as the guy to take over from Mohamed Salah if he does leave. But Chiesa, I think, will be staying. I don't buy into the notion that Liverpool bought him for 12 million and are going to try and sell him for 15 million to try and make a profit. I don't buy into that whatsoever. But there is a few other players here that could also really get a fantastic opportunity as that right midfielder in the system. Ben Doak being one. I know he is highly rated by a lot of Liverpool fans. He's done very well this season at Middlesbrough under Michael Carrick. He's been one of their key talisman. If he doesn't get sold, I do see him having a fantastic future, along with Cade Gordon, although I do think that he is more out than in, and he could find himself a new club in the summer. In terms of the strikers, you got Jayden Dance, who was out on loan. I can't remember exactly where he was out on loan, but it was somewhere in the championship. You've got Jota, and then you've got Darwin Núñez. Both Jota and Núñez are probably gone. Specifically Darwin Núñez, I don't see him staying. Jota, there is more leeway, as he has proven in the past he can be a clinical striker. He is going through a bit of a rough patch of form, and I do think that depending on who comes in the summer, Jota could possibly stay, along with Jayden Dance, and I do think that this kid will get a bigger opportunity, as of course you have all these various players leaving. You can't afford to replace all of them at once, so you can, or if you're a young player, that is your opportunity to try and make a name for yourself, to try and establish yourself in the first team squad. And I do think that Dance is highly rated at Liverpool. I think Slot does rate him, and I do think that maybe if the likes of Jota and Núñez leave and they bring in one striker, you will see Jayden Dance getting his opportunity off the bench in certain cup games, and I do think that he would possibly go on and take that. Of course, there is room for the likes of Chiesa to start up front, just like how Jota transformed from a left wing or left midfielder into that centre forward. There is room for Chiesa to do the same, but you would hope that a player like this could get his opportunity and really capitalize on that moment. So before we approach the transfers, and that is the main aim of this video, I always like to go through the youth academy, where to set up potential scouting networks, where to look at in the world for that specific team. And for Liverpool, they tend to scout very well in the UK, whether that's in England or in Scotland or Ireland or Wales. They tend to find some very good young talent from the UK area. So that is why I've set up two scouting networks, one being in England and the other in Scotland, targeting various positions in the team that could definitely help Slot's side progress, whether it's in 3 or 4 seasons time or immediately. So moving on to the potential transfers that Liverpool could look to make in the summer, and of course these are players that have been linked with a real life move to the club, as well as a few players that I have added onto the list that I do see fitting into an Arne Slot system, and of course I will explain. So if Trent Alexander does leave, I do see the team targeting a new right back. So I've put down the likes of Sacha Boey and Arne Martinez, along with Jeremy Frimpong, who does have a €40 million or £40 million release clause in his contract with Bayer Leverkusen. Trent is a generational talent, but Jeremy Frimpong, in terms of his attacking features, he does offer very similar outlets in terms of what he can produce when in possession of the ball down that right flank, whether it's a cross, whether it's his speed breaking in behind. Frimpong combining with a Salah or potentially a Chiesa down that right flank could be absolutely outstanding for Liverpool and very bad for the opposition's left back. Pointers though, Frimpong does offer a lot of what Liverpool could be looking for in the summer, and there is that Dutch connection that does play a major factor in the potential decision for him to join Liverpool. But in terms of the other two targets, Sacha Boey is looking for a move from Bayern. He hasn't really been able to succeed, but in terms of his natural qualities, his pace up and down the right flank, his ability to whip in crosses and supply the attackers with opportunities in the central zones, I do think that he could be a fantastic option for Arne Slot and this Liverpool side, whether it's the 4-2-4 or the 4-2-3-1, whichever system he decides to go with. You do have a fantastic fullback that can play high up the field as well as drop back and defend and close down the left space. Now, in terms of Arne Martinez, I did mention at the beginning of the video that Slot does adapt his system. He's quite happy for certain players to have different roles. Maybe a role that he doesn't really like, but he'll let them play in that role to suit them and benefit the team. I always try and look back at what managers did in the past, because that does give you a bit of an insight to what they might look to do in the future. And at Feyenoord, Slot did like one of his fullbacks at least, tucking inside and formulating a back three. We haven't really seen that at Liverpool. In the beginning of the season, we saw Andy Robertson doing that, but now we see Robertson and Trent bombing forward, or it could be Conor Bradley bombing forward down the respective flanks and trying to supply crosses into the box. Something that Jurgen Klopp instilled in both of these fullbacks, which is why Arne Slot, I think, might be more okay with a potential Trent Alexander leaving. That way he can bring in a fullback that he might like. I know I've just mentioned Frimpong and I've just mentioned Sacha Boey, but Arne Martinez, in terms of what Slot has done in the past, I think he is a hand-in-glove fit for what he might want to do. He can play as a right midfielder, as a right back, but most importantly as a centre-back, leading me to believe that he could definitely look to invert and create that back three, a solid defensive structure, one that can't be caught out in transition, which we saw against Newcastle as well as PSG happen numerous times. And I just think that the young Spaniard has a massive future ahead of him, and possibly Liverpool could be that destination. He's done very well at Girona over the last 2 years, playing as a centre back, as a right back, and even as a right midfielder, depending on the different formations that Mikel has gone for. Was it Mitchell or the Girona manager? Pointers. Arne Martinez could definitely be the Trent Alexander-Arnold replacements. Now, there is a theme with the three centre-backs that I've put down. We've got Schlotterbeck, Lukeba, and this kid right here. Look, Konstantinos Koulirakis, I think, but they are all left-footed. And this is the contingency plan that I think that Liverpool have set up. Now, all of these players have been loosely linked with a move to Liverpool, whether it's Schlotterbeck, Lukeba, or this Greek god. All of them are also very young. I mean, with Schlotterbeck being the oldest at 25. Now, this is the contingency plan in case Van Dijk does leave. You don't go and get Schlotterbeck and then have him on the bench because Van Dijk's starting ahead of him. But if Van Dijk does leave, I do see Schlotterbeck being the main target for Liverpool to bring in. But if Van Dijk does stay, which seems most likely, Lukeba or this man could definitely be the options that Liverpool try and target. Lukeba, of course, is a fantastic 22-year-old French left-footed centre-back. He's a fantastic ball-playing defender as well, and that does fit into Arne Slot's overall system and how he wants his side playing. So there are two possible left-backs that I could see Arne Slot and Liverpool targeting in the summer. The one being Kirkes, who has been very heavily linked with a move away from Bournemouth, and it is looking like Liverpool are the front runners in that that situation. But in transfers and transfer windows, anything can happen. But I do see Kirkes possibly joining the Merseyside club, along with Leif Davis as the contingency plan, being the backup to Andy Robertson. He is 25, but he can be got on a free, and I do think that that would be something that Liverpool try and target going forward if they do not get a player like Milos Kirkes. But again, I do see Kirkes joining and effectively replacing Andy Robertson as the mainstay starting left back, and then have Robertson on the bench, and he would still be there to maintain the team's ethos and be the character in the dressing room. All these things do play into the overall scheme of Liverpool Football Club. Kirkes is probably the future. He is more so the player that Slot would want. I'm pretty sure, I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure that Kirkes played under Slot at AZ, or was that Feyenoord? One of those Dutch clubs Kirkes was from, and I'm pretty sure he was managed previously by Arne Slot. So again, it does play into effect of, would the player want to join his former manager? And you would probably say yes, because Kirkes did so well that he got the move from the Eredivisie to the Premier League. Now, this is a key area that I do see Liverpool targeting in the summer. This will 100% happen. Maybe it won't be one of these players, but there will be a defensive midfielder that does come in, either to sit alongside a Gravenberch or a McAllister and just be an absolute ball-winning defensive player. João Gomez does fit that. He has been heavily linked with a move to the likes of Liverpool, but there are a few other players that I could also see making that move. Siervold being one, Varela, who has been linked with the move in the past, along with the likes of Morten Hjulmand. He was heavily linked last summer, but nothing materialized there. So those are four fantastic defensive players that I do see coming in and slotting in alongside, like I said, either a Gravenberch or possibly a McAllister. Against a team like PSG, you could see that Liverpool were lacking that physicality in the midfield to try and combat what PSG were trying to do. So bringing in one of these four players could be an absolute incredible bit of business. Now, sticking to that midfield double pivot, of course, McAllister doesn't really have a adequate backup option. Curtis Jones has been played there, but possibly Curtis Jones could be a number 10 going forward. So bringing in a player that could compete or back up or possibly replace McAllister might be the option going forward. Now, let me just say this. I don't think that Liverpool will go and definitely get a defensive midfielder as well as a potential number 8. They would get one or the other. And in my opinion, I think Liverpool are going to go and get a defensive midfielder. But one of Timber, Larson, or Zalazar could definitely be good options to try and add depth to the midfield, as well as competition in the central areas. Now, I've added Takifusa Kubo to the list just because of previous links in the past. He hasn't been as heavily linked with a move to Merseyside this time around or in the build-up to the summer window, but that could intensify as time goes on. But Kubo could be a fantastic option to replace Salah, or possibly be deployed up front as a potential striker. Maybe he does offer that nice fluidity that Slot does want and require at times. But there are a few other wide players that you could also target. One being Alex Baena and another being Ferris Chaibi, as well as Mbeumo. Now, those are three additional players that also offer slightly different things. Mbeumo has been linked with a move to Liverpool as the main player to try and take over from Mohamed Salah. Ferris Chaibi, on the other hand, offers a lot more rotation, a lot more fluidity in the positional sense. He could interchange with the likes of a Dominic Szoboszlai in that number 10 position and then drift out wide again. And we have seen it, whether it's Feyenoord or at times this season with Liverpool and how they play, there is that rotational play between the wide players and the central players. Now, Baena also offers a very similar feature, although I do see him more so as a wide player that can look to be a playmaker from those wider zones. Now, we have spoken about the number 9 position and how that is a weak area in this current Liverpool side. Again, looking back at Feyenoord, the likes of Jimenez was the mainstay target forward. Physical, could hold up the play, could link up the play very effectively, dropping into the midfield and then also making those runs into the box, being that target man for the crosses or the cutbacks. But this season, we haven't really seen that from Liverpool, whether it's Darwin Nunez playing up front or Diego Jota or potentially Luis Diaz. And Julian Alvarez has been linked with a move to Liverpool, which I think is a very loose link, especially with the fact that he's just moved to Atletico Madrid and he's having an outstanding season in the Spanish capital. So I don't think Julian Alvarez is as realistic as what some Liverpool fans might hope. But a player like a Liam Delap, now, this is what you should be looking at, Liverpool fans, because he might be underwhelming, and I think there's a bit of biasness because he does play for Ipswich, but he is exactly what an Arne Slot would want. A physical player that can hold up the play, can batter the opposition centre-backs, was also having the technical capabilities to link up the play very effectively, dropping off the back line and into the midfield, and being that target man in the box, very similar to Santiago Jimenez, who helped Arne Slot win the league with Feyenoord. Let me just add that. And there are another two options that you could also consider, Jonathan David being one of them, a potential free free contract, offers a load of pace, offers that flair and technical ability, that interchangeability. He would definitely be allowed to interchange a lot more. Whereas I think with a player like Liam Delap, it would be the mainstay focal point of the attack, or the guy that just stays up front majority of the time. You won't see him drifting out wide nearly as much. But with a Jonathan David or potentially a Hloshek, both of these players do offer a bit more fluidity with their positions and how they would like to attack and drifting into the wide areas before arcing their runs into the central zone. So two fantastic options. And I mean, realistically, Liverpool could go and get a Jonathan David on a free and then still go and sign a Liam Delap for 30 or 40 million. And then the last player on this list is Pixel, the Brazilian left winger. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but he has also played under Arne Slot in the past, and he could be a fantastic addition to make for that left wing, possibly competing with the likes of Cody Gakpo for that starting left wing position and replacing a Luis Diaz in the squad. So there you have it, people. That is how I would go ahead and start a realistic Arne Slot Liverpool career mode in FC25. I do hope you have enjoyed this video, and if you don't mind smashing that like button down below, whilst also subscribing if you are new and you like the content on the channel. Big ups to all of you guys. We recently hit 15,000 subscribers, and hopefully we can hit 20,000 ASAP. That would be fan-damn-tastic. If you would also like to join up with the Brom Squad Gaming Discord server, the link for that will be down below in the description. And yeah, I'm done waffling. I've spoken a lot. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your goddamn days. I'm out of here. Peace.